All right, well, good morning, everyone. Getting down to the late morning, we'll get started here. This leadership panel is on AI, especially driving business value and ROI, but I think the conversation will range just generally towards what makes AI work and what drives adoption. I'll be your moderator, David Corliss. Our speakers here today, we've got Russell Page right next to me. He's CIO of Hagerty Insurance. We've got Larry Stewart, Vice President of IT at ZBAR, and David Greenberg, who's the Chief Administrative Officer at North. And I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, good morning. Russell Page, as you mentioned, CIO at Hagerty. My background is quite varied, but I've been doing machine learning and statistical analysis and artificial intelligence 30 years. So a lot of people think this is new. It's not. It goes back, predates me, which is hard to believe, but it is. It's a passion and an ongoing pursuit. My background, as you mentioned, 3 years now at Hagerty. Prior to that, I led the data and analytics business at General Motors, as well as brought GM Insurance back into the living. Spent time at State Farm running data and analytics, as well as having a couple of my own companies, an insurtech called Imprezio, and a transportation logistics company called TSS. So it's been both entrepreneurial, and big and small company.
I don't want to throw in a quick comment, but you originally began in the legal space. There's no career that's apart from AI today.
Yeah, absolutely. It spans everything. And I've also spent time in other manufacturing sectors as well.
I'm Larry Stewart. I'm the Vice President, Chief Technology Officer for ZBAR International Corp. Here in Troy. My background, I'm computer science, and I initially started off in AI and was told that's a dead-end road. Go find, you're not going to find a job, go somewhere else. So I did and got into software engineering and data science. So in 21, when the transformer started being used, that's when I kind of saw the light and started headed toward AI. And I've been under the hood with AI for about 3 years, developing software and AI solutions for our company.
And David.
Sure. Hi, Dave Greenberg. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of North. We rebranded last year. We used to be known as North American Bank Card. Started right here in 1992 in Troy. Today we're a merchant bank card acquirer and credit card processor. We're the largest independently owned in the industry with about 250,000 merchants. We run about in excess of $100 billion through our pipes. For the better part of my career, probably 30 years, I was a lawyer in the industry. I fell into AI when I came on board at North as overseeing enterprise risk management. Think of it as underwriting merchants, monitoring their transactions and the like. So been in it about 5 years. I clearly do not have the experience these people have in AI, and looking at the room and just the conference generally, I might just be one of the dumbest people in the room when it comes to AI, but it's been a wonderful experience.
All right, well, our first question, and we've gotten a little bit of a hint of it already. The question looks at why is machine learning and AI so important now? Why has this become a focus for you and your career and your company? Was there a particular inflection point that you can point at? We had a couple of mentions on that. All the folks here, came from originally outside of traditional IT roles, or the company is a traditional IT company. All of our folks here have had the experience of, we're going to bring in AI because it's going to be really important. How did that look like? And let's start with Larry. You were just talking about getting up to that.
One of the issues that we have, being a company that's been around for 65 years, we have data that, they started off with typewriters and kind of moved up. So our data is structured and unstructured. It's all over the place. We have files, we have databases, and so on as we evolve through technology. So the challenge is trying to get all of that data together to make sense of it. And AI actually is that tool that we can, take any structured or unstructured data, feed that into AI, and it can start answering questions and giving us that competitive advantage to see the market, what we need to do, and how to react to it.
Thank you. David, you said you were fairly new to AI. What made you say, oh, well, this is something we need to be bringing to the table?
Sure. Well, the guts to our business is receiving merchant applications every day. We might receive 200 to 300 of them. What we need to do is underwrite those applications. And for a long time, it was all very manual. So we had 30 to 40 underwriters doing 10, 15 a day. That leads to a lot of unpredictability as these underwriters, toward the end of the day, no matter how hard they work and how much they try, they really lose focus, and at the end of the day, they may not make the same decision they make in the morning because it's a very manual, sort of boring process. Same thing goes with transaction monitoring for us. When we monitor our merchants and their transactions to protect merchants from fraud, which is prevalent for us, what we need to do is look at thousands of transactions. So we have risk people looking through those transactions every day. AI was the mechanism that allowed us to scale. So if we got more applications, we didn't have to hire more people. And it gave us predictability. We didn't have uncertainty because the machines don't care about doing the same task over and over. So it's created predictability, it's reduced friction for us, and it's given us scalability.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make a really quick side comment with the first two commenters here. You know, we've had really good information, but it's not in technical language. This isn't a talk on how to code, but how to drive value and to help people see that it's driving value. I really like the non-technical conversations focused on driving business results. You've been doing that for a long time. How has your evolution looked?
Yeah, and so when you think about AI, just generally having a machine do something a human can do, mimicking human decision making and getting it into the workflow. So that's what has always sparked my curiosity since my early days in my career. And you think about, all right, this starts off with heuristics and algorithms, statistical analysis put into various decision trees. And you were really limited by compute, you were limited by memory, you were limited by data, you were limited by the types of systems you worked with. This evolves from human to human interface to human to machine, and now we're really trying to harness machine to machine communications. And today, I feel like the gloves are taken off. We've got access to compute, we've got access to memory, we've got access to data that we could never even imagine before, both what we've generated as a company, as well as the knowledge base, the corpus of the world is at our fingertips. So for someone like me, this is, of course now, I've been waiting for these floodgates to unlock.
Thank you very much. Then let's get a little bit more specific. Storytelling time. I want you to fill us in on a favorite AI use case that you've seen either in your career, especially for your company. Nothing proprietary mentioned here, of course, but what's the thing that you want everybody to know about? Let's start with
Yeah, great. So at Hagerty, you think, how many people know Hagerty? All right, we got some car people in the room, love it. So we are the largest insurer of classic, collectible, enthusiast, exotic cars in the world. We also have a media arm. So if you ever want to watch a YouTube show, Jason Camisa, it's great stuff. I highly encourage it. Humor plus cars, great mix. We have now the world's third largest auction house. So you think of Sotheby's, you think of Bonhams, Broad Arrow Group. In 3 years of us starting into this business, we now have this great auction house. And then we have our events that we have around for, everyone from, we call it Concours de le Monde, essentially the Concours of the Lemons. So you can have everything from your Frankenstein cars and Yugos and everything else, up to our Concours d'Elegance, so our Amelia Island event, Pebble Beach, where you have the 30, 40, $50 million cars on display, and it's really posh. So you think about that and you're like, all right, where does AI fit into this? And it's all about the experience, the connection with the customer, the member, as we call them, within our drivers club. And if you can have precision, recall, and speed, you've got the mix for bringing an experience and an authenticity to your member interactions that you didn't have before. And one of the great use cases that we've brought forward in building our start with the data factory, get into the modeling factory, you build it into the software engineering stack, but is the ability to take, again, that corpus of knowledge, all the authoritative material in the world on these classic and exotic cars, and build that into something that you can have non-hallucinogenic, non-plagiarized, conversational discussions with your members on the value of their vehicle, where it's taking place, where they could show it, how to insure it, of course, and just have that real authentic relationship and remember that conversation, right? And the next time they call, you can pick up where you left off. So it's a great use case. Again, it's about being more authentic, about having precision, recall, and speed with the member that just makes that experience with Hagerty everything it can be.
Thank you. Let's go over to David Greenberg, again, someone who's fairly new in this space. Was there some particular application that you saw somewhere else, or something that you've implemented at North that really stands out, that really was the groundbreaking changing event?
Yeah, I think for us, transaction risk monitoring is where it was really groundbreaking by putting in an AI ML model that looked at patterns of merchant transaction activity instead of looking at each individual transaction, which is what our risk analysts were doing. We were able to reduce the transaction alerts by about 85%, and that allowed us to reduce transaction holds so merchants could get their money the next day, not have to wait a day or two or get a call from a risk specialist. Now, the thing that did, you would think, well, maybe that's going to reduce the number of people we need with the reduction in alerts, which is usually a big fear when you put in these systems. But what it really did was it took the people who were on the line looking at each risk transaction, moved them up into fraud analytics so they could have systems that would allow them to look at the broader landscape, and they became fraud investigators. Instead of looking at the transaction, they began to get involved in identifying larger fraud patterns. So their profession or their career stepped up. They didn't get dropped off the grid. They stepped up. So that's like, for me, that's really rewarding when you can do that.
Larry, let me ask you now, in your particular case, you're at a company that, I work for DT, used to be Detroit Edison. We've been around for 100 years. A lot of folks have had, working here for a company that have been here for a long time. How are you working at ZBART? It's taking a mature company, but you're having this AI revolution today.
One of the challenges I mentioned earlier is try to get your arms around all the data that you have and all the different sources and stuff. And I think one of the biggest benefits with AI that I've seen is now you have your data, you have control of your data, you can disseminate this data, make sound business decisions. And if you need information that, let's say you have a report that gives you X, Y, Z or whatever, and you need some additional information, you tend to have to go to your IT department, say, I need to update a report, I need this, I need a new report, I need this query. AI kind of does that for you, and it gives the business leaders the ability to access their data and ask the questions they need to ask to make sound business decisions without having to jump through a bunch of hoops to get your IT department or whoever to create these reports, to get you this information. AI kind of does that for you in the background, and that's a game changer for us, and it's proven itself.
Awesome. Now that we've talked about one of the things that AI, how it's delivering value, and how that's made changes in companies that have driven the adoption of it, on the other hand, there are challenges, there are barriers. They come with data, they come with technology, they come with other might be institutional resistance and different kinds of things. Let me start with David Greenberg on this. The question we've got here is, what are the challenges that exist to a driving adoption of AI? What challenges have you run into, and how are you addressing that? I know I've done a little bit of work I'm a forecaster, so I get pulled into all kinds of things. I've done a little bit of work in the credit card space, and it seems like you've got every challenge under the sun, whether it's data or technology or other issues, regulatory environment. What are the big challenges that you see when you're driving adoption of AI, and how do you address that?
For us, the biggest problem is it takes time. You've already heard that it takes a while to pull the data, to get it in the right place, to get it in the right format, to build the pipes, to get the data into the model, to build the feature store. It takes a long time. And business leaders today are not that patient. So you've got to get buy-in, and you've got to be able to explain each step of the way how it's going to help. For us, it took 2 years. Actually, it took more. It took about 4 years because the first team we brought in to do it didn't know what they were doing, and we had to get rid of them. And then we had to bring in our own team who had done it before and knew what they were doing. So it's been a 4-year process. It takes a lot of patience on the part of business leaders of a company. So you have to show them what it's going to do. You have to show them each step of the way how it makes things a little bit better. And then the aha moment comes when it all really rolls out. And that's the problem. That's the hardest thing.
Larry, what are your thoughts? What are the challenges that you've seen, and how have you addressed them?
This touches my heart because I ran into this about 3 years ago when AI started picking up where it was well known. I brought it up to the CEO, and I was kind of like, don't worry about that. It's not going to be anything. So the most important thing is to get to teach and let your upper management understand what AI is and its impact. And in order to do that, you have to know and learn it yourself. And one of the things that was successful to get it implemented in my company is I created an AI committee. And basically, each department will have an individual, a subject matter expert, that knows their department really well. That way you get everyone in the same room and they can all see the vision and where the company needs to go, and not necessarily what is best for each department, but what's best for the company as a whole. And if you get everybody in the room, they can all agree, yeah, we can see the vision. We know that if we go this direction, it benefits everyone. And then later on down the road, then you kind of go to each department and you kind of automate this, you add AI to this, and so on. But the major thing is getting the buy-in from your upper management and your colleagues. And in order to do that, they have to understand what this technology is, what its capabilities are.
Just bringing everybody on board and making them see the mission and the message. Russ, I know that you've been an early adopter of AI for a long time, and it goes through rounds and rounds, and now you're an early adopter for this. What are some of the mountains that you've had to climb over the years, and how did you do that?
Yeah, and I'll build on a little bit of what Larry said here. And it is, let's say, vision and clarity of purpose. How do you go get it done? And I'll just use Haggerty as an example, a now 41-year-old insurance company in an incredible growth period. But when I joined, they did not have a mature data department. They did not have a single data scientist, and the tech stack was a proprietary legacy tech stack that, quite honestly, became brittle, fragile, very difficult to maintain, monolithic for those who are in sort of the software engineering space. And when I first came in, it is a matter of being able to have leadership courage. I was fought by CFO, by the COO. Why do you want to start spending this money on data projects? I said, these aren't data projects. This is the future of where the company is going. So we either start doing this, look at the entire cost to serve economics, unit economics of IT, let me worry about how we're going to implement that, and you look at the results. But don't worry about how much I'm spending on this data team or that data team or this software engineering team. I will orchestrate it, and you will get the outcome. And it's a very tough thing, right? Because it's a constant loop of, why are we doing this? You're spending this much here. Shouldn't we be spending it there? It's like, we've got to completely, fundamentally rethink the IP stack here. And you've got to have this so that that embedding of both off-the-shelf sort of co-pilot type of AI can help enable the workforce, create quicker summaries, quicker marketing materials, those types of things. Integrate in the machine learning. You still have to do things like propensity to buy, propensity to sell, all those types of machine learning models that make the company more efficient, make you have better decisions, and then layer in the LLM and agentic AI capabilities. But the software has to be ready to consume that. You got to have that machine-to-machine ability in order to communicate, and then you start bringing it down. And now success has many fathers, which I'm very glad to share, and everyone can say, look how fast Hagerty has come to the forefront of AI.
I saw a whole lot of heads nodding on that. Other comments? You want to jump in? You face a lot of the same things.
Yeah, excuse me, it sounds like we all had the same problem. And what was actually funny was you build the deck, you present it to the leadership, they buy in, and then 3 months later, you got to present the deck again and explain it to them again. And then 3 months later, it's the same thing. And then all of a sudden, like what happened with you, is they have an aha moment and they see it. And now they can't get enough of it.
Larry, thoughts?
I was just going to echo the same things. It's about the buying.
We just heard that, and it's good news. Success has many fathers. There's another half of that saying, success has many fathers, failure is an orphan. Let's talk about failure for just a moment. There's one particular point of failure, I think a lot of it, certainly on the panel we've seen, I think a lot of folks here have seen, you got a pilot, you got a proof of concept, it has whiz-bang results, and it just doesn't get adopted. It's one of the biggest failure points in what all of us are doing. So this question is, since that can often be a sticking point, how do you address that? How do we work on the process to go from, there are a lot of great pilot projects, how do we move that into production? I'm going to be starting off with David Greenberg, who talked about just a few minutes ago how his first round for AI, they brought in some folks, and that didn't work out very well. They had to decide that they needed a change in direction. How did that go?
Yeah, we brought in a national company that built AI/ML models and claimed to do it in our industry. What we found after about a year of working with them is that what they were really doing is building the model and then looking for us to give them the knowledge and intelligence to take that model and make it useful to us. And in doing so, they could then productize that for other competitors in the industry. So it took us a while to learn that, and we had a long contract negotiation. We had KPIs, SLAs. They didn't achieve any of them. What we learned then is the next step was, let's bring somebody in who's in the industry, who's done this before, and knows how to structure the data, build the pipes for that data to flow to the model, how to test the model, how to run it in the background in pilot while we're still running in manual production. And that's where we were really successful.
Larry?
When I approached this, since I started this, being an AI engineer, I tried to do it all myself. There wasn't, we didn't have all the people that are out in the hallway here to actually do the work for us. So it got to a point where, it's a lot now, and I think it would behoove us to have a partner. And I think that's the major thing, is having a partner, having a solution that are people that you can trust, someone that you can keep going to, not just produce an application and then leave, but to have somebody that you can work with, or a company, and having really smart people that know what they're doing, know how to implement it, understand your business, and then actually develop it custom to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's an old saying, aim small, miss small, and make sure that you put any project out there, any proof of value in a consumable amount. We use a process called envelope funding. So we say, here's the gates to success, right? We use this envelope. It may fail, it may succeed. No one gets bent out of shape because that envelope was authorized. Now we get the permission to keep building, and those envelopes get bigger and expand, and you expand the reach. And it's been a really successful, real easy way to work with the CEO and CFO in order to keep proving value. What I would say is some of you are going to have to face transformational projects, right? Big things where you all are all in and have to eat the elephant. And if you have to do that, the case there is to make sure. How many people watch Star Trek? I don't know, but Scotty, he was the master of under-promising and over-delivering. And so you want to go in humble. You want to go in and let folks know that mistakes will be made, that it's not going to work out of the gate. When you start plugging things in for the first time, things break. It's just the way it is. I don't care how good your engineering team is, things are going to break. And you've got to have that preparation in there, that buffer period, and that really clear communication to say, here's all the things that went right. We're going through a major transformation project at Hagerty for our core policy billing claim systems. Anyone in insurance knows that is eating the elephant. So what we continually focus in on that scorecard of, we had 19,583 work items over the course of that. When we get hung up on 30 of them, we're doing great, right? And so having those types of metrics, understanding here's the big picture. Yeah, when you get down, you get a lot of these paper cuts. A lot of people try to make mountains out of molehills there. Keep your eye on the big picture and keep that type of information in front of them. Here's all the things we did right in this project. The last thing I'll say on it is that data is key. 80% of data projects fail because executives run out of patience for doing it right. And I will always say tech debt does not scare me. Data debt does. You can't fix bad data. You can't go back and make new data. You have to start from where you get clean ingestion. So it's really, really important to ensure that your stakeholders understand the value of the data, and that is the long pole in the tent.
In moving from pilot to production, one of the barriers that I've seen have to cross a lot of times is actually more of a social barrier between different kind of groups. Pilot projects are very often developed with a small group of technologists. And one of the reasons I've seen why some projects will fail is that there isn't enough, we're just touching on this, but communication with a wider group. It's just social change to socialize the project from starting with a small group of technologists to driving adoption with a larger circle of people. How do you see that? Did anyone have any comment in no particular order, but times when we've got, how do you go from the science lab to the boardroom to driving broad value and those social barriers that exist between technological teams and business teams?
So one of the issues, or how we solve this, is to educate everyone, because we know that to make compelling news, they try to scare everyone. So a lot of the employees and management are kind of afraid of losing their jobs and having AI take over and stuff like that. But creating that committee, you bring people together and they see that it's not as bad as it made it out to seem on the news and stuff. So you get their buy-in and they start seeing that, hey, we're not trying to replace you, we're trying to automate these silly tasks that you have to do that takes up a lot of your time and allow you to actually do your job and to focus on the business's mission, because all this ancillary stuff is taken care of through AI.
Yeah, and I echo everything that Larry said. And one of the additional tips that I use is have a trusted partner who does not see the world the way you do. I've got a partner, he leads our customer experience group. His name's Willie. And we often philosophically align, but we are just coming at things from a very different perspective. And he's got a very humanizing, very creative way of framing things. And I'm very, very analytical. And so often my communication style will just make people's eyes roll back in their head and like, what is he talking about? And so I really force myself to get uncomfortable feedback in how I'm shaping a message and ask for help. Like after we battle this out, I'll let him present it. Like you go send this message to the group. You're better at delivering this type of message to this audience than me. So you got to be humble, have humility in how you work with folks, and make sure that the goal is to get the work done and to move forward, and not for personal accolades or whatever, pat on the head you think you're going to get from the board or whatever. It's to go create value and opportunity and security for your folks. And the other thing, I think it's great, you have the committees, when you have the committees though, make sure you have the meeting before the meeting. Like, you talk to the people ahead of it, what you expect them to bring, what you want them to get out of it, and then, usually the meetings are much more, tenable. You have much more action-oriented outcomes, and, a lot of head nods at the end of it.
In addition to the AI committee, we also have classes for the employees. So we had a prompt engineering class. People come in, we teach them, this is how you chat with these models. This is how they work, having them understand what AI is. And that was very helpful and very appreciative with the employees.
David, now I know that in finance, it tend to be very conservative, very risk averse. What's the path that you're taking to get AI, if you will, out of the lab and into the wild?
For us, I think for us, the most important thing, and you've heard this already, is buy-in. And when we brought in a team to build the risk models, the approval models, decisioning models, and the like, we already had a data science team in the company that was performing basically data analytics and data reporting to the rest of the company. And they all thought they were going to lose their jobs. And building trust with them, bringing them into the process, showing that by working cooperatively, their responsibilities will increase, not decrease, was huge. So that data science team that was there has now moved more into data engineering, and they're critical to our success. We couldn't be successful without them. And they now work cooperatively with us, and the models that we produce when we talk about what we do each quarter, what we've accomplished, they're all in, and that's critical.
Thank you. Let's get into that a little bit more when we're talking about making the case. How do you make that argument? One of the critical things, we're all data people. We're going to use data to show what kind of value AI is driving. So my next question is, what are the metrics? What are you using internally within your team to see if this is a promising prospect or not? And then more broadly, as you're driving adoption, what key metrics are you using and that you found most meaningful in your particular context?
Yeah, so for us, and you heard me kind of talk about how I look at it in terms of unit economics, right? So you start with the highest level. What are the company's goals? Some people use unit economics, cost to serve, cost to sell. In insurance, we also have loss cost. But you may have some other discounted cash flows or whatever your great metric is. For us, when we look at those unit economics, it allows me to go into this with a framework of what am I ultimately trying to achieve for the organization? How much should that cost to acquire be? How much should that cost to serve be? And then layer that into, all right, the overall goal is to create an amazing member experience, to be there for them at their time of loss or need, and to help them enjoy and engage in this lifestyle with their vehicles. And so I don't look at it in terms of, is this particular project going to be a value enabler? I look at it in terms of the IP stack and saying, where does this fit to further highlight the member experience and lower cost to serve, lower cost to acquire along the way? And so I'm looking at that core economic unit that the C-suite uses as its one pager to say, we're healthy or we're not. And I can then decompose that down into the drivers of it, but the core of the software stack needs to be what is supporting that. So it's an architectural design from the system up. So I don't look at any one project as am I going to get X ROI on this particular investment? Is my system working? A particular function or feature, we'll take it in or we'll move it out because the overall health of the company is improving or not improving as a result of the tie-in to that metric.
Thank you. What are the Just continue with it.
Well, we don't necessarily have like an actual KPI. How we kind of evaluate it is like if we implement a certain solution that uses AI, this freed up 4 hours of this employee's job, and they can now focus on these other things. Or the reporting that we're getting is more robust, there's more information. They can ask or modify these reports on the fly and get better visualization of the data and to make the decisions. And so that's kind of how we gauge it, is how well it's worked and what has changed in the company because of these AI solutions.
You know, when we're developing these models, and we've heard a reference before, what's the accuracy, precision, recall? These are technical things and they're hard numbers, but the picture we're getting from these business leaders is how is it changing the business? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the KPIs are very important. It's about reducing losses, increasing approval rates, and reducing friction. By having a good risk monitoring system, we can open the door wider to merchants because we can catch problems earlier because we're looking at patterns, we're not looking at transactions. So what we've been able to do with our model is increase our approval rates probably by 5 to 10%. We've been able to reduce our losses. We typically run at about 2 basis points, which is about an industry average. We're now running at 1 basis point, which is $4 or $5 million a year. So it's paying for itself. Friction, being able to get the merchant the money the next day, being able to approve that merchant within 90 minutes and getting back to them, like you have with your credit card when you go and apply for a credit card. That's what we want to achieve. And so those KPIs are very important to us.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you, if for someone who's just beginning, so what advice you're all industry leaders here, for folks that are here that are just starting their journey, what would you recommend for them as a takeaway? What bit of advice, what 1, 2, or 3 things that you would say to someone who's starting down the AI path? What are the tools they should have in their toolbox? What are the strategies they should have to get this off the ground? Start here.
So first thing is, be passionate and form an opinion. You need a command of the facts. You've got to get in there. I'm very focused on an academic lifestyle. I don't know, it's been ingrained in me for a long time. So I still work on a semester basis, and I take classes every semester, continuing to enhance my programming skills, AI skills, and sometimes it's other things. Sometimes it's finance, or sometimes it's whatever topic is at hand. But you got to be a lifelong learner. And if you're getting into AI, you need to dedicate yourself to it. Like, don't think that because you did one quick tutorial or you did a few things, like that you have the capability to form a strong opinion and then have leadership courage. Be in it. Really educate yourself in it. Work on it on the side. I see a lot of, and I'm going to pontificate for just a second, because I see a lot of folks coming out of university, young engineers, young data scientists, and they expect, when 5 o'clock hits, they're done, right? And I get it, and that's a lifestyle choice. I have no problem with that if they can get their work done. But if you want to lead, you're not done at 5. You are still learning. You are writing your own systems. You are doing your own testing. You're doing your own algorithms. You're asking people questions.
Putting stuff in your own GitHub.
Putting stuff in your own GitHub. Be active, form an opinion, be open to having that opinion challenged, and lead with courage. Like, go out there and say, we're going to go do this, and then fight to get it done.
Well said.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the knowledge part is learning and not just being stagnant. And everyone here is on the forefront of AI, so we have an advantage, and it's just keeping up with the market, understanding what AI is and how it will affect your company. And I would say do crawl, walk, run. So if you don't have anything in your company, just crawl, walk, run. Implement something here to mitigate this particular issue or make improvements or increase speed. But just do it in pieces and understand what's going on. Understand your data, understand your company, and make sure that it's implemented properly, and that you do have a team that's always working on it, that knows and understands when things change, how to change it, and so on. Is always keeping on top of it and understanding what the technology is doing in the background.
So keep learning and crawl, walk, run. David?
Yeah, it's intellectual curiosity. It's rolling up your sleeves, which, don't hold it against me, but I'm from the New York area, and I spend a lot of time up here. For the last 6 years, I've been up here, 2-3 weeks a month. And what amazes me about this community is it is really a roll up your sleeves community. And you all, you're perfect for this kind of work because you are curious. You really work hard. And the last thing I'll say is don't be afraid of failure. Learn from failure. It's good. That's the way you're going to get better.
So I'm hearing roll up your sleeves and get to work. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Be a lifelong learner. Don't be afraid to fail, but keep moving forward. We've got some time remaining. If there are questions from the audience we'd like to address. So I want over here first. Can you come up to the mic? The audiovisual folks will be very happy to get your voice better.
So you've talked about a few different things that I'd like you to touch upon again. Just you mentioned a non-hallucinating model, right? You talk about risk and reducing risk within an organization. How do you feel extremely confident in those results? Some of the largest AI products commercially available are still not at the point where you'd have enough confidence to say, yeah, this thing can run this part of my business without me having to monitor it, right? So what measures do you put in place to feel comfortable and feel confident and build trust in the products that you're using to help run your business in the absence of line-by-line oversight?
I can jump in.
Great, thank you.
So it's a great question, and it comes down to we don't trust the outside world. Obviously, the engines that have been put out there are great. What's great is that we have access to them and we can build them in an enterprise format. But you have all the tools to build your own vector stores, right? And that's what we've done. And we've built proprietary technology around how we do these truthfulness checks, these fact checks of the data. And so if you think, oh gosh, I want to know how much this 1960 300 SL Gullwing is worth, we have the authoritative sources in our vector store. And when it delivers the results, it sources that information. And then it also highlights where it had to source that information from public sources and says, our confidence is low on these results. Check them yourself. With this part, this is the authoritative source this information came from. You can trust it, right? So you've got to be able to, it depends on your use case, right? For us, we're both dealing with highly valued vehicles. We're also dealing with regulated industries. So if you think insurance, filings, forms, claims, we've got to be able to look at very specifically our product filings, state regulations, et cetera. So we put all that in our vector store, and we do the same types of capabilities where we do that fact check on it. We deliver that yield of kind of confidence interval on it, and give a clear output to our users. If it's a customer facing item, same type of thing. We just tweak the language so it's a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question because hallucinations in the LLMs was pretty bad. It's getting better, but being AI engineered, ways around that or ways to mitigate the hallucination is to properly implement the AI, to prompt it properly. And it's not 100%. So like you have your vector store, you have different areas where you can pull information from and then check that information. And if you're in your retrieval augmented generation, there are things that you can do before and after you do your vector search to supply the context to the LLM. Just to make sure the data is correct. But that is a concern, and it's something that it eventually is going to pretty much go away, but right now you have to be aware of that, yes.
And I'll say, if you haven't used GraphRag yet, it is amazing. So, doing some work on a proper ontology, getting that into a knowledge graph, and then giving your LLMs access to that, it is phenomenal outcomes.
Yeah, and using GraphRag, we went up to like 94 to 97% accuracy, just implementing, sparse and dense vector stores and stuff like that.
Yeah, for us, it's explainability, avoiding bias. We look at this model every day. There's a team of probably 5 or 6 people, that's all they do. And it's also very important as you build the model that you understand the results and you can explain them. For us, it's a little bit easier because it's not really a large language model. It's just taking a data lake with transaction information, with merchant information, but still understanding it, having the right tolerances built in, and checking it every day is important.
It's getting close to the time to be wrapping up, so just one quick thought I want to add at the end here. One of the consistent themes I've seen running through this and some other conferences I've been at in the past, this hasn't been a whole lot. We got some really good comments on RAG graphs at the end, and I'm a big fan of that too. But a lot of the conversation here has been more about human interaction and how to drive change and how to bring people on board. It's been my observation for a long time now that AI doesn't move forward at the speed of technology, it moves forward at the speed of trust. And this panel of experts have been saying that, how to get buy-in. The kind of metrics very, very often aren't the sort of things you'd find in a confusion matrix, but are the things that are going to drive the bottom line for the business, reduce risk, make a change in customer satisfaction and how people are doing the business. It's those things that aren't always necessarily measured in numbers or numbers that go to the impact of the business that's making the biggest difference in driving the acceptance of our AI and getting the maximum value out of it. I want to thank our speakers very, very much. I'm sorry?
Can I ask one quick question?
One quick question.
Sorry. So I am a professor at Oakland University, and so the question that I have for the panelists is, we talked about lifelong learning, Russell, and so we have a program in AI in the School of Engineering. So I am from the business school. So eventually, all of these tools and technologies have to be implemented in the business. So the question that I have for you is, so if we start a program AI in businesses, what would be some of the things that we should focus on that would differentiate us from the School of Engineering?
Well, you're going to get a really biased answer from me because I think that you should make yourself more closely aligned to the School of Engineering. I think that the more business people lean in and understand what's happening with this technology, they will be better off for it. So, I would partner with them and say, here's how we're going to put our special tint on weaving in finance, weaving in human resources, weaving in operations into this, but methods, techniques, I'd really punctuate the engineering practices because I think people are better off for having an engineering background mixed with their business background.
Other thoughts or comments on that? Then let's wrap up. Again, thank you very much for everyone coming. Good to see you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.